Okay, so considering artists for your record labels. Um, I'd say this is one of the most important functions that you're going to need as a record label executive. Needless to say, a complete unknown will have less established name recognition than a well-established act. So if you're going to be signing a complete unknown, you're going to have a lot harder of a struggle. And the price may be different. So if you're looking at a artist that is on, you might be able to negotiate a better price for the artist as far as royalties go. However, if the artist is a major act and very well established, you might have to spend quite a bit of money to get that artist to come and join your record label. So what you want to do is develop an artist pool, which means you're going to keep an eye on artists that are attracting attention to your market. Any bands or performers, songwriters, you're going to try and keep a contact names and numbers of these people that you might want to consider for future use on your record label and really stand out. Want to pay attention to them, go to their gigs, become their friend, talk to them. You just don't run up to them with a contract and said, hey, I want to sign you to a record label. No, this is like going on a date, take a ring with you on your first date. You want to court the artist. You want to make sure that is going to be beneficial to you. So like I say, keep an eye on the acts that are attracting attention, and the ones that have a following in the area. Think about your artist's interests, your audience's interests, and not just your own. It's the job of the record executives to be aware of artists that are making a splash in their own backyard. It's also their job to listen to all the demos that you're going to be getting in the mail. So this kind of brings up the question of protocol. And yes, there's etiquette in this part of things. If you're going to be accepting materials from artists that are non-solicited, which means that you're just going to open up your mailbox and see who sends you stuff, you got to be careful of that because you don't know about plagiarism. You don't know for sure that the song that they're pitching is theirs. That's why labels do this. So you're going to have to come up with some sort of protocol on how you're going to be accepting this. I get so many unsolicited recordings every day that it's sometimes can't keep up with them all. I'd say average is about 50 a day. I can't listen to 50 a day. I can't listen to 10 a day and give it good quality ears. I have narrowed it down on who I'm accepting material from. If someone in the industry that I know and I trust says, hey, check out this new artist, something you might want to consider, all right, that's a good referral. I'll listen to that artist. I'll pay attention. I'll go and do my due diligence and do the homework to make sure it's working. But if I'm getting something in the mail or an email saying, hey, check out my stuff, we want to be on, we want to work with you, I don't have time. And you may have time at this point in your career, but as you become more and more established as a record label, you're going to find that it's not as easy to keep up with all the work. So you're going to have to come up with some sort of protocol to make that work. The more successful the artists are, everything works together. Your job is to help your artists become successful. If your artists are successful, you will be successful. And just remember, this business is all about networking and relationships. So smart record label executives first try to get to know the artists that they're going to work with. So like I say, they go to the gigs. Sometimes they'll go to rehearsal. They'll get to know them on a friendly basis. Maybe they'll go out to dinner once in a while. They'll talk about friends and family and funds and fans and all those kind of deals to get to know who the artist is before you go and say, hey, let's sign an agreement. Let's collaborate. because there's a lot of artists out there that you might enjoy their show, but maybe you don't want to collaborate with. And you'll come up with judgment calls. For example, I have a thing, tardiness. If they're tardy to meeting with me, that means they're going to be tardy to a stage call. They might be tardy to a recording session that I'm paying by the hour. But by getting to know, it encourages trust, and that trust makes it easier when you start negotiating. And you want to do a little homework. Is this a diamond in the rough? You know, do you see, do you hear, do you feel the quality of the artist? And will the artist fit the culture of the record label? Maybe you're trying to develop the label to be a specific niche in order for you to establish a brand for your record label. So other things to consider. Does the artist write their own material? If the artist writes their own songs, are they copyrighted? Does the artist need any lessons or coaching? Does the manager? Who's in charge? What kind of ego and attitude does the artist exhibit? And what kind of business do they have, or have they established? What kind of image does it portray? Do they have an attorney, or what agreements do they already have in place? And who's funding it? Who's paying for their art? Have they established a chosen name, and do they have a trademark on that name? If they're a songwriter, publishing their songs, and are they a member of a PRO, and which ones? Do they have instruments for recording or performing? And who's on the team? Who's the collaborators? Do they perform live? These are questions that you're going to have to ask. How many fans have? Do they have any chemical addictions? Are they dependable? Like I say, do they show up on time? Do they have any business sense? I can tell you that I would rather work with an artist that has more business sense than no business sense. Can they tour? Do they have a day job? Are they flipping burgers? How many previous releases have they had? Or do they just have a couple demos? And are they prepared to work with the record label? So these are questions that you're going to need to ask yourself about dealing with the artists that you're selecting for your record label. And then I would go to help find some of these artists. If you don't know them and you're trying to establish some for you, go to Sonic Bids, pay attention to that, or Reverb Nation, or some of the other ones that are on there. Yeah, so you need to find artists who can do this. Now, there's an interesting company out in San Francisco called Rykodisc. What Rykodisc has done is they have found artists that were dropped from major labels. The cool thing about this is that the major labels put in all the time and effort to get those bands established, and they spent money on promotion, tried to get them on the radio, tried to get them in the newspapers and on fanzines and those kind of things. And then they didn't sell 100,000 records, so the major label dropped them. Well, Rykodisc, oh, I was wrong about the name. It's Rhino, R-H-I-N-O, Rhino Records. Rhino Records went around and started signing them. Well, this took an unknown act that became known because of the record label, who then dropped them, and Rhino picks them up. And so even if they sold 20,000 units, Rhino's making money because their overhead is a lot lower than Universal or Warner or Capitol or EMI or any of those kind of things. So it was a very good idea. And a guy by the name of Dave Darris, he's a Clevelander, went out there and co-founded Rhino Records. He used to run a Cleveland Connection over on Berea Road. But that was the whole deal behind Rhino. I thought it was genius. Referrals. As I told you, referrals are an excellent source for record label executives. If you start to do your networking and relay, ask, hey, are there any artists in your market that are making a buzz that I should pay attention to? if some of your artists are touring or on your label, ask them if the opening act was any good, and if there's any, and then check them out. I mean, these are things that you might want to consider. So these relationships that you've established, you're going to have to pay attention to these opinions, because the nice thing about having a relationship is being able to obviously benefit from those relationships. Sometimes regional radio stations play unknown artists. You might want to pay attention to the college radio stations. And we're very lucky in Cleveland to have a multiple CMJ reporting stations. Cleveland State, WCSB, Case Western, WRUW, John Carroll, WJCU, Oberlin, WOBC, and Baldwin Wallace, WBWC, are all good stations to listen to local talent and unsigned bands who are getting some airplay. Just ideas on you striking out on your own and trying to form your own record label. So pay attention to the artists that are getting some local attention as well. And then check out their charts. So like Baldwin Wallace has their own charts on who's charting at that station. We talk about the Billboard chart here, and that's really for the majors, but I do that on purpose. But check out the local scene, the national scene as well. But the local and regional scene, find out what's going on within that scene, and find out, whenever I go into a city or a town while I'm traveling, I always stop into a local record store and I go right to the local music department in that store. And I flip through the CDs to see what local bands are putting out product. And then I ask the store owner, I said, who in the area is making a buzz? I'd like to pay attention. And this is how I do it, okay? So what you need to do is just reach out, kind of develop and nurture a relationship with the artist, and develop and maintain a contact with them so that you are there when needed.